You hear about cancer breakthroughs all the time, but have you ever wondered what happens after that aha moment in the lab? How does a brilliant idea actually become a life-saving treatment? Well, it's an absolutely grueling journey. So today, we're going to follow one small biotech startup, a company called Metastop, to see how they're fighting this billion-dollar battle. And this is really where it all begins, with a mother of a 3-year-old. This one message just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? It shows you exactly why this fight is so important. You see, it's not about data or lab results in the end, it's about people. It's about life, and the terrifying fear of it being cut short. This is what's at stake. And that story, as heartbreaking as it is, it's not a one-off. It's part of a much, much bigger and more devastating picture. A picture that is completely dominated by this one single number: 90%.
See, it's usually not the first tumor that's the biggest threat. It's the spread. It's when cancer cells break off, start traveling through the body, and set up shop somewhere else. That process is called metastases, and it is the absolute villain of this story. It's responsible for 9 out of every 10 deaths from cancer.
So that begs the question, right? If metastasis is the real killer, why have we been so terrible at stopping it? Let's take a look at the weapons we currently have, and you'll see why, for so long, this enemy has seemed pretty much unbeatable. And this right here, this is the core problem. For decades, we've basically been fighting the wrong war. Our main weapons, surgery, chemo, radiation, they're great at attacking a big, stationary target like the first tumor. But metastasis isn't a fortress. It's more like a guerrilla force, spreading silently through the jungle. Our tools just weren't built for that kind of fight. And if you look at the results, I mean, wow, these are blockbuster drugs making billions of dollars a year. And yet, for patients with metastatic cancer, they offer, on average, just 3 to 5 extra months before the cancer gets worse. Think about that. Billions of dollars for just a few precious months. The need for a totally new way of thinking couldn't be clearer. So, yeah, what's the move? If everything we've been doing is kind of missing the point, where do we even start? What's the new plan? Well, this is where our story gets a new hero, a small biotech startup called Metastop. They were founded back in 2018 with one single, incredibly ambitious mission: to finally take down metastasis. And we're not talking about a couple of people in a garage here. No, this is a legit dream team. The founder, Dr. Arnab Chowdhury, has more than 25 years under his belt at places you've definitely heard of, like Johns Hopkins and Harvard. And his team, it's packed with scientists and advisors from industry giants like Pfizer. They've got the experience, the know-how, and the awards to prove they're the real deal. Their whole idea is it's a total shift in thinking. For decades, the focus has been on stopping cells from growing, but Metastop is asking a different question. What if we focused on stopping them from moving? It's like they've invented a cancer detective kit that can finally tell the difference between the cells that are just standing around and the real getaway drivers that are causing all the problems. So how do they actually do this? Well, they've built this awesome 3-part toolkit. First, there's Metasay, which basically recreates how cancer spreads in a lab dish using actual patient tumors. Then, an AI called MetScan chews through all that data to find new weak spots to attack. And finally, MetVivo lets them test potential new drugs super fast in animal models. It's a whole system built from the ground up to hunt metastasis. All right, so you've got the genius idea, you've got the cool tech, you're all set, right? Well, not so fast, because that's only half the battle. Now comes the really tricky part: navigating the shark-infested waters of the big pharmaceutical industry. Because here's the hard truth of the matter. A small startup, no matter how brilliant they are, can't bring a new drug to patients all by themselves. They need the cash, the global network, and the sheer power of a major drug company. Our hero needs a very powerful ally to win this fight. And this chart, this tells the whole story. Big pharma companies are willing to pay huge amounts of money, but what they're really paying for is certainty. The further along a drug is in clinical trials, the more proof there is that it works, the more money they'll put on the table up front. This puts this incredible pressure on a little startup to prove their science works, to de-risk it for a potential partner. But that pressure, man, it's there for a reason. Just look at the potential reward. These are real-world deals for companies at the very earliest stage, the preclinical stage.
We're talking upfront payments of 50, 100, even $180 million, with the total deals being worth over $1 billion. The road is tough, for sure, but the reward at the end, it's absolutely massive. And if you want to know what that pressure actually sounds like, here it is. This is real feedback from a potential partner. It's the same thing these startups hear over and over again. This looks great, we're interested, but come back when you have more data. Come back when you have proof it works in humans. It's a constant, never-ending quest for more proof. So, after all the science, all the brilliant minds, the high-stakes deals, what's the final showdown? What does winning actually look like? Not just for the company, but for all of us.
Okay, so how does this whole epic quest actually end? Well, there are really 4 main paths to the finish line. 4 ways for the company to get its technology out into the world and, of course, to give a return to the investors who funded the whole journey. In the business world, they call this the exit. So let's just quickly break down what these mean. An acquisition is the simplest. A big company just buys the little one. An IPO is when they go public on the stock market. A buyback is where the company uses its own money to buy shares back from early investors. And a secondary market just means shares are sold privately from one investor to another. They're all just different roads to the same destination.
And the prize for winning, usually through an acquisition, it's staggering. For a company that has a proven platform like this, the potential value is somewhere between $400 million and $1.7 billion. That is the financial peak of this mountain.
But after all that talk about billion-dollar deals and exit strategies, you got to step back and ask, is that really what this is all about? You have to remember where this whole thing started.
And that brings us right back here, to the final line from that mother's message. Because in the end, all the science, the business, the entire billion-dollar battle, it all comes down to this. That is the real prize, to turn that awful fear we saw at the beginning of our story into this one, simple, powerful hope.